All right, what is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast weekly real estate tip. And today I'm here to talk to you about how to grow and scale your real estate business from 6 figures to 7 figures on a yearly annual basis. So this is a question that came in just a couple days ago from one of you guys, one of our amazing GSD Mode podcast listeners that's been stuck in the 6-figure range, $400,000-500,000 range for the last few years, really looking to scale up their business from 6 figures. So that's going to be anywhere from $100,000 to $999,000 to 7+ figures. So meaning $1 million plus on an annual basis. So what does it take in order to do that? Now, here's the cool thing is, a lot of the things I'm going to talk to you about here today are going to help you scale your business regardless of what level that you're at. But there are some very nuances, some very specific things that allow you to go from 6 figures to 7 figures that I want to break down here and talk about today. Now, if you have a question that you'd like me to answer here on the GSD Mode podcast for one of these weekly real estate tips, you can either, if you watch this on YouTube, comment below. Or if you're listening to this, or if it's just easier, more preferred for you, shoot me an email at joshua@gsdmode.com. Subject line, just put in that question for the podcast. I'll do my best to answer your question here as one of our weekly real estate tips that we release, 3 to 4 of these every single week here on the podcast. And if I start getting a big amount of these, maybe we'll start knocking out 2 or 3 per podcast, right? So I want to do everything I can to give and deliver content to you guys that's of value and powerful to you guys. All right, so before I jump into this, make sure to check out gsdmode.com for more additional free resources, more additional free training. And on there, I highly encourage you to schedule that 100% free Zoom strategy coaching call with me. Again, it's 100% free, 0 strings attached. It's just a private, confidential Zoom coaching call with you and I. We're going to break down your business, where your business is at, where your 12-month goals are, what your long-term goals and visions are, what your current obstacles are, different things that you're facing in your business, what you're currently doing. And then from there, I'm going to map out exactly what I recommend that you do to get from where you're at to where you want to go in the quickest, most effective, efficient, profitable manner possible. So you can do that by going to gsdmode.com. You'll see a banner at the top, or wherever you're watching or listening to this, should be the top link in the description or the show notes to be able to book that. Okay, so you're at 6 figures, looking to scale to 7 figures. So if you're at 6 figures, especially, for the person that asked this question, that is at kind of the mid 6-figure range. When you get to that point where you're doing, $500,000, 400,000, 500,000, 600,000 on an annual basis, look, that shows me that, okay, you got client acquisition dialed in, right? Like meaning, okay, you got your lead gen strat, like how to go out there and generate leads, how to convert those leads into clients, probably got your buyer consultations, probably got your listing presentations in place, because like if we look at real estate as a whole, it's a strategy, skill set, systems and processes, then leverage game. So if we look at the first two, okay, to get to 6 figures, in most cases, not all, like if you're at, there is a difference between $100,000 to $500,000, obviously, right? But to get to, mid 6 figures, that shows me in most situations, in most cases, that you've dialed, like you've got an effective strategy, like lead client acquisition strategies to overall effective plan, that you've got an effective plan in place, and that you've honed in your skill set. Right now, what's going to take you from 6 figures, and now an example of this though, and this is where so many struggle in this industry that are below 6 figures. And when I say 6 figures, again, there's a big difference. Even if you're with this economy, with everything that we're seeing right now, dude, you make $100,000 right now, you're still struggling, right? It takes, making a few $100,000 to even get out of struggle mode for most in this industry right now. So to get to there, like the first 2 things that everybody must master, everybody must dial in is your strategy and your skill set. So strategy is your overall effective plan. What is the most effective plan that you're going to be executing on it daily, weekly, monthly to get you from where you're at to where you want to go? And this really is going to break down, apply to every aspect of your business. But in the beginning phase, the first element of strategy that everybody must master in this business, but unfortunately, most in this industry that have even been doing this 20, 30 years haven't mastered this. Like I would say that 95% of this industry haven't mastered strategy, like new client acquisition strategy. So this is where, okay, you got to know with precision every single day, every single week, what you're doing, exactly how much of it that you're doing. Again, so not just knowing what to do, but what to do with precision. So here's exactly what I got to do daily, weekly, monthly to go out there and hit my closing goal, right? That's what I mean by new client acquisition strategy. So that's number 1. Number 2 is skill set. So then skill set is, okay, have I acquired the right skill sets to go out there and have success with my overall strategy? So and it's going to be different if I'm hitting YouTube versus Facebook versus cold calling versus open houses versus like each different strategy that we are going to have, new client acquisition strategy plan that we're going to have is going to require a different element of skill set. Obviously, then you got your skill set from being able to be a great presenter. Like you got to have a world-class buyer consultation, world-class listing presentation. You got to know how to lead the client process. You got to know how to price properties right. You got to know, like that's all part of skill set. So again, to get to though making multiple six figures, so that 4 or 5, let's just call it $300,000 to $999,000. Okay, that shows me that you got those two components in place. Now, if you're not at that level yet, you got to hone in these two things. Not saying the others I'm going to walk you through aren't imperative and are important for you, but do not stop. Don't pass or whatever the monopoly saying is. I'm going to fuck that up right now. But you need to just pause on everything else and hone in and dial in those things. And again, this is why I do these free strategy coaching calls here in the program, or through this podcast, is to help you with that. So again, if you don't know exactly what you got to do with precision to get from where you're at to where you want to go, just go to www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call. I will get you dialed in on that. There's no reason, no excuse that you don't have this dialed in. I will also let you know what skill sets you need to master to have success with this thing. So again, we remove all that guesswork. Okay, so then it's going to be the other components that are really going to allow you to go from 6 figures to 7 figures. I learned this early on, because like early on out of the gate, I knew I wanted to become, $1 million plus a year producing real estate agent. So I'm like, hey, how do I go from, made 280 my first year, how to go from 280, to $1 million and, so forth through there. And it took me a few years to break that $1 million mark. By fourth year in the industry, I broke that $1 million mark on GCI level. And then went from, $1 million to now we've done consistently for over $5 million every single year for several, 4 or 5 years now straight, and that 5 million GCI range now. But when I'd go out there and I'd start learning from these agents, these mega producers, even when I was in the business only for a year or 2 years, when I was learning from them, they weren't doing anything out of the norm. Like they were doing all the same shit. They were still doing, open houses or whatever the lead gen sources were. I was expecting to see some magic pills, some shiny, realized, dude, that didn't exist. They didn't have that. Now they were doing them better. They were doing them more consistent. They mastered the skill set. They mastered and refined each element of the strategy. So they had the effective plan with precision. They'd mastered the skills. So they really mastered those things in, but then from there, the other thing that I realized is from observing and on my own journey of being able to scale this up. Because again, going from, making $500,000 to making $2 million on an annual basis wasn't lead gen, wasn't lead follow-up, and it wasn't even necessarily skill set. It came down to systems and processes, and then eventually leverage, right? So with systems and processes, this is the next thing that I want you to assess, right? Because why are systems and processes so essential? Systems and processes allow us to do the same things over and over to ensure that things aren't slipping through the cracks, so we can do things in the most effective, efficient, way, ensure things don't get missed, right? So it allows us to just go out. The quickest way to scale, even before we start plugging people in, is through systems and processes. So usually when I see people start getting stuck at that, like $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, they're stuck there for several years. Usually 99% of the time, it is a system and process issue. Their systems and processes aren't out. Now they've got all the skill set and the plan in their head. They've got all this dialed in. They know it inside and out. They're so damn good with the skill set. They're just, I don't want to say they're naturals because nobody's a natural. Like all of this stuff is learned over time, but they haven't created the machine yet. And so this is where we got to dial in our systems and processes. So what are processes? What are systems? Processes are just the step-by-step actions of our strategy plans. We're just going to chunk these down step by step. So here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, here's step 4, here's step 5. So we're going to take our step-by-step actions that we are doing to execute on our strategy plan. That becomes the processes. Then the processes are going to then live inside of systems. So if you look at this, like the cookbook is the system. Inside the cookbook are all the recipes. The recipes are going to be the steps that you need to do to execute on your strategies. Right now, I know this is the unfun, unsexy part of this, but this is where you go from having a job to having a business. This is stage number 1. Yeah, we got to master lead gen, lead follow-up, but all those things, and most that I see that are still, in that $300,000-$400,000 GCI mark, have a job. They haven't yet graduated into building a business and having a business, which is usually the things that are necessary to launch them above that, $1 million plus GCI mark on an annual basis, right? So we got to get their systems and processes honed in and dialed in, their tracking system, their system and processes dialed in. Then once those are dialed in, that's going to, again, allow them to eliminate waste, be more effective, be more efficient. So maybe that allows them to go from, 400 grand to 600 grand, whatever. But eventually, you're going to hit a capacity that's going to take you to another capacity. It's going to help you break through a ceiling, but now you're going to hit another capacity. Then from there, now you need people, right? And then this is where the leverage component comes into place. Can't do it all on your own. Eventually, you're going to need people. So this is where you got to get damn good at understanding and learning, okay, who to hire, when to hire, how to hire, who to put in place. And there's so many different ways of structuring this. You do not have to go out there and build a traditional team by any stretch of the imagination. There's so many different models, so many different ways. So with this, you got to decide on, okay, what is it that I want? What do I want my life to look like? And this is a conversation I have with so many of my coaching clients or agent partners that partner with me at EXP that I coach and mentor. But it's, hey, what do you want your life to look like in 20 years from now? 10 years from now, we're not just, we're going to focus on the immediate goals, your 12-month goals. But then I want to look, okay, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. What do you want your life to look like then, right? And then based on that, and based on what matters most to them in this industry and what is most important to them personally in business and putting these pieces together, now we can identify the right model. Right now, no matter what, you need your system of processes in place, right? You got to have the strategy, the skill set, the systems of processes. Why the model becomes so important is that lets us know then how we need to structure this based on that leverage component. Meaning, okay, who do we need to add? What are the roles? What are their positions? What is this going to look like? What is that infrastructure going to look like? That is going to be predicated and dictated based on what your model is. So it's very difficult. And I have other podcasts where I've talked about, all the different team structure models. But look, it may not be a team. You might decide to go out there and create a brokerage, or you might decide to go, do what I did through a company like EXP that allows you to build a team, but also allows you to build a brokerage inside of a brokerage and have different revenue structures. There's so many different ways to go. And I've done it all the different ways too, right? That I've had to go out there and test to figure out what's right for me and made a lot of mistakes there, learn what to do and what not to do. Sometimes in life it's easy to figure out what to do, but sometimes it's very challenging to figure out what not to do, right? But we got to reverse engineer this and figure out, okay, where is it that you're at? Where is it that you want to be to the best of your knowledge? But my recommendation is take a few days to really think about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what do you want to be doing with your life? How much money do you be making? What would your perfect day look like? What time would you get up? What's the first thing that you do? Second thing that you do? Really assess this stuff. Would you be working in 10 or 20 years? The answer is no, I want to exit. Okay, well then what's the exit strategy? There's different, ways to go out there and exit, but we got to be methodical with this. But once we know what that model is, now we can go out there and plug in the team, plug in the right people based on the teams or based on that leverage component. So an example of this, one of my agents, team leaders, if you will, she sells about 70 homes a year, kind of part-time, but she didn't want to go out there and build your regular traditional, team like I had done previously. She's like, hey, look, I still like to do the lead gen, lead follow, but I like to travel and, take my 20 vacations a year. I want to run high margins, so we set her up as more of an admin team. Where she got her transaction coordinators, listing coordinators, but then she's got essentially licensed boots on the ground agents, quote unquote buyer's agents that she pays an hourly, wage to, where then on her average closing, it's she's paying out $500 per closing on average versus a 50-50 split, on these. So her margins are through the roof. Now she still is involved in, because her business is very inbound based, so she's not having to do cold calls or open houses. All her business comes to her with the different, strategies that she has in place. So all the business comes to her. She has a relationship with all these people. So she still enjoys doing the buyer consultation listing presentation because they're all people coming to her that know her, that are sold on her, right? But then the second they become a customer, a client, then she has her licensed, kind of admin, boots on the ground, buyer's agent, or showing agents, whatever you want to classify them or call them, doing all the in the field stuff that allows her to do her business from anywhere in the world, but also gives her the autonomy more freedom. And like I said, that's how she's going to go out there and sell 70 units this year, on track to sell 70 units this year part-time and probably take 20 vacations, right? But that was what was most important to her. like to be able to build a life that allowed her to do that. So everybody's going to be different. This is where, but if she didn't have that clarity of what she wanted, okay, it would have been like, shit, we don't know what the best plan is and the best leverage vehicle to start plugging people into places. So there's so many different ways to grow, growth, right? Like when we look at, okay, well, how do I get to 7+ figures? Well, it's like, okay, well, how do we get to 10? Well, you got 1 + 9 will get you there. 0 + 10 will get you to 10. 1 + 9 will get you there. 8 + 2 will get you there. 3 + 7 will get you there. 4 + 6. There's a lot of paths to 10. Yeah, right? We got to figure out, okay, what is the, like, so there's a lot of paths to scaling up to creating a business and making 7+ figures. We got to figure out, though, what the right path is for you, right? It becomes really important. And again, if you are unsure on any of this stuff, you don't know, with any component of this, I know that these are more strategy calls, but with this, like, I'm happy to help in any way I can. So whether it be strategy, whether it be skill set, those two kind of go hand in hand. Maybe your process systems are off, or maybe you don't have clarity on what type of people to plug in, what type of team to go out there and build, or what type of infrastructure to go out there and build. When I say team, I'm talking about more than one human being. More than one human being with the same objective goal of growth in your business. I'm not talking about, traditional real estate team versus brokerage, right? I just mean team, meaning starting to add human beings to your overall organization with the community goal of growth of your business. That's what I mean by team, is more than one. So if you're stuck on any of that, more than happy to, again, jump on this 100% free strategy Zoom coaching call where you and I will jump on that call. We can discuss all of this, break down where your business is at, what your 12-month goals are, what your long-term goals and visions are, what you're currently doing, what your biggest obstacles are. And then from there, I'll give you what my insight is. I'll give you, based on my years of experience, here's exactly, if I were you, here's exactly what I recommend that you do to get from where you're at to where you want to go in the quickest, most effective, efficient, profitable manner possible. So if that's something that you want to take advantage of, again, go to www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call, or wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening to this. You go to the show notes or the description, will be that top link. So just to recap this, right? So if you are at, let's just say if you're below 300 grand, so 0 to 300 grand, and this isn't going to be perfect. I'm just kind of using this as a reference range. You got to master the first two things. Got to master your strategy plan, got to master your skill set. And when I say strategy plan, I'm talking very specifically in this scenario and situation to new client acquisition strategy and or strategies that you are doing. Like, what are you doing every single day, every single week, every single month to go out there with precision to get the amount of customers that you need to hit your closing plan? Then number two, okay, what are the skill sets that you must acquire, that you must learn to have success with those things? I see so many people like, oh, Josh, I tried this, I did that, didn't work, did that, didn't work. And I'm like, look, dude, output equals input. Like everything works, nothing doesn't. I get that you tried this thing, but it's not the thing, it's you. It was your approach to the thing, right? It's kind of a nice way of me saying, like, you just sucked at the thing, dude, right? So we got to make sure that you're doing the thing in the right way, again, with the right strategy plan, but then you got to make sure, like, you can have all the strategy plan in place, but if you haven't developed the right skill sets to execute on that thing, you're still gonna be experience a ton of resistance. So we got strategy, so new client acquisition strategy. Then we got your skill set, processes and systems. That's going to include tracking, CRM. I mean, anything done more than once in your real estate business needs a process and system for. And then that last fourth component, leverage. So if you're below 300 grand, it's probably those first two. Then if you're, let's just call it 300 grand up to 900, 99,000, then somewhere you're, in most cases that I see, it's lacking, 3 and 4. So process and systems, and then leverage, so we got to know what stage that we're at with that and what we need to focus on to plug into that. So anyway, I hope that this was helpful. Keep up the amazing work, keep crushing it, and I will see you next time. Peace.